turkey tail is it actually helps clear the viral load. So it's actually great. Like if someone has got, history of viruses and, family history of, say, particularly looking at the breast cancers, the female cancers, then using Coriolis preventatively can be really helpful for reducing the viral load in the body and then potentially, reducing someone's risk factor. And then there is research, of course, of it being used as part of primary oncology care. And now Hifas is looking at integrative oncology care.
This season of Reconditioned is made possible thanks to Hifas da Terra, and I'm a little bit obsessed with them and I want to tell you why. So if you follow me on social media, you'll know I talk about mushrooms a fair bit. Yes, I am that wild, and no, not the psychedelic kind, not this time anyway. I've known about the crazy health benefits of medicinal mushrooms for a while, especially after watching Fantastic Fungi on Netflix, but I never found a brand that I fully trusted. And then I came across Hifas da Terra, and I am not exaggerating when I say it has been life-changing. They have medicinal mushroom products to support autoimmune diseases, allergies, hormonal imbalances, gut health, brain function, emotional well-being, musculoskeletal issues. The list is endless. And because they're one of the few mycotherapy companies to actually carry out clinical trials on their products, they've been able to develop their Onco range, specifically for cancer. And potentially my favorite, they have products for children's immune systems and the gut-brain axis. Great for ADHD, sensory issues, and gut support. These have got my kids through this winter of illness, and they've made a huge difference to my son's sensory challenges. I'm swearing by them. Hifas da Terra mushrooms are not only certified organic, but they use the fruiting body of the mushroom as opposed to the root, which even the so-called top mycotherapy companies are not doing, because it's more time-consuming and more expensive, but Hifas are. Spoiler, you get more benefits from the fruiting body, which is one of the reasons Hifas products are more effective. The concentration and content of their products are also much higher than standard brands, and the company are constantly striving for quality, effectiveness, and safety, putting over 60% of their profits back into research. These products have changed my life, and I want you all to have access to this level of healing. So visit hifasdaterra.co.uk, that's hifasdaterra.co.uk, and use code Lauren15 for 15% discount. Thank you so much to Hifas da Terra. Hi, I'm Lauren Vaknine, and you're listening to the Reconditioned podcast. I created this podcast following my journey from severe disability since infancy to complete wellness, as a way to share my passion of healing the whole self. Because I learned in my own journey to wellness and through my 2 decades in the wellness industry that it makes no difference what you're here to heal. It all requires the same whole person approach. We tackle everything from trauma, health optimization, and neuroplasticity to manifestation, holistic parenting, and everything in between to help you create an optimized life of well-being, abundance, self-mastery, and purpose. You're not meant to live a life of stagnation, and you're not meant to be just fine. So hang around and let me help you recondition your life back to wholeness. Hello everyone, welcome back. Thank you for being here again. Great episode for you today. I've just finished recording with Hania from Hifas da Terra, who we've partnered with for this season because I am so in love with their products, and I've been learning about mycotherapy for a while now, which is using mushrooms for our health. I was never able to recommend a company, a medicinal mushroom company. And FYI, because I get this question so much, medicinal mushrooms are not psychedelic mushrooms, totally different thing. This is using mushrooms as medicine, all different mushrooms for all different ailments, including cancer, autoimmune diseases, hormones, everything you can think of, brain health, gut health, everything. The episode was such an eye-opener. I've actually done training with Hifas da Terra, And I've been kind of doing my own study on mycotherapy for, I'd say, a couple of years now. But this was, beyond eye-opening, and so much information there. And make sure to hold out until the end, where we talk about using mushrooms for cancer and how potent a healer they can be for COVID and other viruses, autoimmune diseases we speak about nearer to the beginning, and gut-brain health. And also right at the end, we talk about using mushrooms for children in the very palatable form of liquid that Hifas da Terra have developed, 2 products for children that I have on my website. So all the products, not all the products, Hifas da Terra generally is listed on my website on the LV Recommends page. Most of the products are listed as well, and you can find them there. And if you love the episode and want to try some of the mushrooms, just go to my website, type in Hifas da Terra, or just Google Hifas da Terra and you'll find it. And use the code Lauren15 because you'll get a 15% discount, which is obviously fab. And they are completely affordable, even though they are, I would say, one of the top mycotherapy companies in the world, using the most high concentration medicinal mushrooms manufactured in just the most extremely exquisite way. And I won't go on about that now because Hania goes through it, talks about exactly why this company are just the top company if you're going to go for mushroom products. And why wouldn't you? They're just such potent healers for pretty much everything. So just a brilliant, brilliant episode. And I hope that you'll listen to it and enjoy it and consider using mycotherapy for your general health and any other ailments that you have coming up, or for anyone in your family. For me personally, I speak about at the end using them for my kids, for my husband, for me, for my parents as well now, for a whole range of things. So highly recommend. Hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you once again for being here. If you know anyone that this will serve, please do share it with them. And as usual, feel free to like or follow or subscribe to the podcast, because the more people that subscribe, the more people end up seeing the podcast, and then we can share the love, share all the information for all this incredible health and growth knowledge that we're passing around here. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Hania Opienski is a naturopathic nutritionist, traditional Chinese medicine acupuncturist, life alignment healing practitioner, and education lead and mycotherapy specialist advisor for Hifas da Terra, UK and Ireland. So welcome, Hania.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to have this chat because, as you know, I'm very into my mushrooms and my mycotherapy. So we're going to go into, I've got a whole bunch of questions, and I know my audience is super interested in just really kind of going deep with this subject, really learning about what it is about medicinal mushrooms and how we can utilize their benefits. So I've got a load of questions, but before we do, I always start by asking the same question, which is, what have you done so far today to support your wellness?
No, lovely question. So I always start the day with a couple of things. So one is some heart math. So this is a breathing and visualization exercise that encourages harmonization of the nervous system and bringing in positive emotions and expanding the heart torus, the heart energy. And then I have a morning meditation. And today I actually was feeling I just started my period, so I was feeling a little bit off. So I also did some shaking, which is really good for stimulating the lymphatic system, getting the chi moving, and just, helping to liver chi stagnation. So that was really important to just kind of help me, feel a bit more present and able to, have a good day.
Amazing. I love that. Beautiful. Thank you. So let's just dive straight in with, I guess, the most basic question for anyone who isn't yet sure what it is we're going to be talking about. What is mycotherapy?
Okay, so myco means mushroom. So mycology might be a term that people are a bit more familiar with. So that's the study of mushrooms. And then therapy, of course, we know this is using something for its therapeutic benefit. So mycotherapy is basically using mushrooms for their therapeutic benefits.
Right. Okay. And so why are we using mushrooms? What is it about mushrooms?
So many things. So they are their own kingdom, but they are actually very, in terms of coming from, the primordia and the first living organisms. Mushrooms are actually, the fungal kingdom, are right next to the human kingdom, and there's actually more crossover than there is with plants. And so there are a lot of things that mushrooms are doing for themselves that the human body really easily just kind of can use and understand. And they have a lot of qualities that are helping us to stay in balance. So a key thing, well, two key things that they do is this modulating effect. And one of those is for the immune system. So they're what we call immune modulators. And that's something maybe we talk about a bit more, because there's a lot of stuff about immunity and certain herbs you can and can't use. Mushrooms modulate. And then the other thing they modulate is the nervous system. So they're what we call adaptogens, which I'm sure you're familiar with, which means that, like a lot of herbs, they also have this capacity to modulate the stress response and to help the body to be maintaining homeostasis and a balance, not be too much in extreme stress or in freeze and just complete sort of lack of reactivity.
So I watched, as many people who will be listening to this have, I watched Fantastic Fungi quite a while ago, and I guess I was into mycotherapy before that, but that really opened my eyes about the immense power of these mushrooms. And, who knew kind of that there was this amount of power in mushrooms, in fungus, essentially. What is it we don't know so much about and that we're starting to learn? I mean, the thing that really got me was this kind of network, this kingdom happening underneath the ground, that the trees and the mushrooms and everything's connected, the mycelium network. Can you talk us through that a bit? Because I do want to very much go into some of the specific mushrooms and their benefits and their properties and what they're treating. But I'd really love to get a bigger understanding on this kind of hidden network first.
Yeah, exactly. It is amazing. I know when I first learned about that, there's another term for it, is the mycorrhizal network. I was completely blown away as well. And basically, this is how mushrooms communicate, how they actually support, like they're a really key part of soil. Like that's something that I think hopefully people are getting more awareness of, and it's something that can really be utilized, because as we know from an environmental perspective, there's a lot of issues with carbon production, with food quality, with sort of land, soil fertility, etc. And mushrooms are actually a really key part of that. One part is the fact that they actually break down plant matter and turn it into this amazing humus, which is like compost. They are actually breaking down plant matter and making it therefore reusable, releasing all of those nutrients and making good quality soil. And one of the things that they do, which helps them, but it also helps the network of plants and trees that they're living with, is they have this network. So what we think of as a mushroom is actually what we would call the fruiting body if you're looking at the whole fungus. And that is just a small part, and it just sort of, those are the things that you might see if you're walking in the woods or in a field, or, what we buy in a shop, and mainly what we use to make supplements. But actually the major part of a mushroom is actually the mycelium, and this is the equivalent of roots. And so this mycelial network is what makes up the mycorrhizal network. So there's all these tiny little filaments that go through the soil, and the amazing thing is that they connect with roots of plants and trees, and then they do nutrient exchange. So what happens is, say a tree, it needs a specific mineral, like it's like, I need some zinc. What it will do is it will send down a specific sugar into the mycorrhizal network, and the mushroom will take this sugar and it will send it through its network to all these other trees, and it will look for another tree that has extra, that will read that sugar signal and go, oh yeah, I've got extra zinc, I'll swap you that sugar for this zinc, and then the mushrooms will send it back. And there's like millions of these communications happening all over the place, and these different mushrooms competing for the sugars and the things sharing. And so there's just this amazing network of interaction and balancing that's going on literally underneath our feet, as long as there is a mycorrhizal network. And this is why ancient woodlands are so precious, because they have this mycorrhizal network that has been there for, hundreds, maybe thousands of years. Whereas as soon as we're tilling the soil, we're actually breaking up all of this network. And so, new we've had blights with, commercially planted forests, and that's because they haven't had been mycorrhizally, you can actually re-inoculate trees with mycorrhiza, so that once they go in the soil, this process just happens. But if that isn't done, then, a forest, if there is a blight that comes through, there's not this network. And that's the other thing. Does if there is an illness, like either a plant disease, or even a plague of certain insects that come through, that information can also be sent through the mycorrhizal network, so that the trees can actually gather the appropriate nutrients or chemicals that are going to fight off the pest or help to strengthen the tree's immune system, so that a blight doesn't wipe out a whole forest. And in our modern forestry and planting, that doesn't happen, and that makes everything so much more vulnerable to these kind of things. So it's a really important part of our our land history, but also important part, hopefully, of new ways that we can actually be maintaining soil health, plant health. Huge factor.
It's massive. I mean, when you think about it, it's literally kind of the health of our planet. And also very interesting to note about planting new forests and knowing that they can be inoculated with it, but if they're not, then they can fall victim to these pests or diseases, whatever's going to affect them. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, and that's the other thing with mushrooms, is that, there is this whole ancient network, but they're also, they're so primed for survival that they, new mycorrhizal networks can be established very, very quickly. And that's something actually that Hifas does, is they plant mycorrhized trees in Spain. And so again, they're planting indigenous trees, the chestnut trees, but it's also with this mycorrhizal network. So it's actually supporting the soil and, the local ecosystem. So that's something really important also.
It's amazing. And it's actually one of the reasons that I'm so, I guess, just so kind of in awe of Hifas da Terra, and like just so glad I found you guys. And I want to get on to that soon, about, your ethos and how it started and all of that. Let's first go into all the mushrooms, and because so many of them have incredible properties and healing benefits, and, for cancer, autoimmunity, a whole range of stuff, hormones, even musculoskeletal issues. Would it be okay to take us through kind of maybe what you feel are, say, the top 4 or 5, say lion's mane, reishi, turkey tail, and what they do and what they can do if they're used in the right way and kind of grown and manufactured in the right way?
Yeah, certainly. So we can start with some of the ones you mentioned. So lion's mane is a wonderful mushroom, and I think it may be something now that people are starting to be a little bit more familiar with. And it's normally thought of as a brain mushroom, and it has this. It's really beautiful. It has all these long. The actual mushroom fruiting body isn't like a sort of smooth mushroom like we're used to.
It looks like a brain, right? It actually looks like a brain. Yeah, we get them quite often.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's amazing if you can get them to actually eat, in the farmer's market, which thankfully you can sometimes.
We actually have a mushroom farm. They grow organic mushrooms literally over the road from us. And I found them at a farmer's market, and they happen to be using this farm that is, 2 seconds from our house. So we get these amazing boxes of fresh mushrooms to add to our food.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, and that's an amazing thing as well. It's like mushrooms, you don't just have to think of them as something that is like a medicine or a supplement or something that you can only take in a tincture or a powder or a capsule. It's wonderful just to be including mushrooms in your diet. Lucky enough, some of these, what we call medicinal mushrooms, are also culinary mushrooms, like lion's mane, like shiitake, you can actually get and have as a part of your diet. So yeah, definitely really encourage that. So lion's mane, yeah, so it has these, like, looks like lots of hairs, which also look like all of like nerve fibers. And so that kind of gives an indication. We call it the doctrine of signatures. So what the thing looks like gives an indication of what it can support in the body. And so lion's mane is really great for the nervous system. And yes, traditionally it's been used really widely. More modern usage or thinking about it was very much as, it's a brain mushroom, and it really is. And there are some amazing compounds in there that actually help to regrow nervous tissue, so stimulate the body to actually heal itself. And that can be from neurodegenerative conditions, and that's preventatively, and actually even some evidence that then even if someone is actually down the path of starting to have some sort of neurodegenerative condition, so MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, that lion's mane can actually stimulate the body to actually start repairing, which is amazing. But now research, they're also starting to look at, well, is it just the brain? No, it's actually all of the nervous system. So it can be, peripheral nerves. So if someone's had a nerve injury, an accident, a surgery, lion's mane is something you consider taking that will actually, again, help the body to heal that area. And also we have the huge amount of our nervous system in our gut. So actually for healing the enteric nervous system, lion's mane is really useful for that. But it's not just working on the nervous system. And actually it's one of the best prebiotic mushrooms. So again, we really think about it for gut health. And it's also anti-inflammatory. So again, particularly in the gut, but also systemically. And as with most medicinal mushrooms, it has this immunomodulating effect and also supports the body staying in homeostasis. And so there is some evidence of use for, for oncology, for prevention, for care, and, with particular organs and tissues. So thinking about it for sort of digestive particularly. And it has a lot of other active compounds, but those are probably the key things. And of course, we don't just need to think about neurodegenerative conditions. It can also be for just brain health. So for cognitive development in children, for memory, for concentration, for just using it to help for those people that maybe feel a bit foggy headed and want something that's going to help them feel sharper or clearer. The nice thing with mushrooms is that as long as you don't have an allergy, so if someone's allergic to food mushrooms, unfortunately they can't have medicinal mushrooms, whether they're culinary or not. But otherwise, you can take mushrooms preventatively. If you're healthy, take a low dose of mushrooms, eat them, take a powder, take a light tincture, and that's going to have, boosting effects. And then as, if you do have a complaint or a condition, or then, you take them at a higher dose, and then, they're actually going to work therapeutically as well.
How would one, because I was interested that you mentioned lion's mane as a prebiotic. What would be the best way to use that as a prebiotic, to take it in supplement form, to eat it fresh, to eat it on an empty stomach, eat it with food? What would be the best way for that?
Yeah, so as a prebiotic, it's great to actually have the whole mushroom. So, extracts do have the beta-glucans, which are the key polysaccharide in medicinal mushrooms, and a particular type of. And so those do have some prebiotic effect. But there's lots of other prebiotics, different types of fiber within a mushroom. And so when you're having the whole mushroom, you're getting some of those more what we'd consider therapeutically active compounds, but a lot more of the bulk of these insoluble fibers, which are going to feed your gut bacteria. So getting a whole mushroom product, or a whole mushroom, or an extract that is a full spectrum, means that you're going to be getting these active compounds. So there are syrups that can be given to children, like I know I've seen that you use the Hifas syrups with your kids. So there's one that has lion's mane in there, which is for gut and brain health. And adults can take it too if they, healthy, want something low dose and don't want to take a capsule or a powder. Otherwise, powders, this is something that it can be combined. People have probably seen, mushroom lattes at their their organic store, and often lion's mane is one. Or you can mix it in with other hot drinks. You can mix it in with food. Like I tend to use the lion's mane powder instead of bouillon. So if I'm making a sauce or a stock or a soup and I want something that's gonna add a little bit of protein and fiber and flavor, that's a great way to just mix it in. And it's quite a mild sweet mushroom, as you know from eating it. So it's quite, it's a flavor that doesn't sort of overpower. You can even put it in sweet things, like if people are doing smoothies, or hot cacao, or hot chocolates. It blends very well with that.
And which of is there a specific one? I know you've got, is it the biointestine on Hifas that would be the one that you would recommend for that?
So if someone is,
that's a powder, right?
Yeah, so biointestine is actually in a capsule, but it is just a whole powder. You're right, it's not concentrated extract. And that one is great. Like if someone has dysbiosis, if there is, they know that there is an imbalance in their gut bacteria and they want something that they can take, with a regular dosage on a regular basis to help, rebalance the gut, then I would say, yes, biointestine is a really good choice, because that's mainly lion's mane, but it also has some shiitake and oyster mushroom in there. And those are other good mushroom prebiotics. And so that combination is really great if you're really just trying to give the microbiota a bit of regular food. And then having a capsule is great because you're taking the same amount every day, whereas with a powder you might not have a smoothie one day, or you might not think of it, and it's easier. So if you're healthy and just for prevention, great, add them, eat them. But yes, if you want to really rebalance something, or say you've got to take some antibiotics, and you want something that you can take while you're taking the antibiotics, or maybe before you take a probiotic that's actually going to help your own innate gut bacteria to get a bit of a foothold again before you bring in all of these, huge amounts of other probiotics that might not be indigenous to your gut. That's a really good time to then do a course, of something like biointestine. Take 2 or 3 capsules, a day for a few weeks. And that's a good time to do it.
Would you recommend that? Because I know some of them come in the bags of the actual powders, and biointestine is a capsule. Which one of the kind of powders that you add to a smoothie would be the best one for, I say, like gut health, pro or prebiotic?
So the Hericium Digest is one that's just pure lion's mane. So that would be the one to use in that instance. Great. And that, because it's a powder and it means you can dose adjust it, you could also use that for children, as long as, they've eaten mushrooms in their diet, they're not allergic, you can then have that in their food or in their drinks as well. If you didn't want to have, the syrup, which, does have some agave in there. So it's a way of getting mushrooms in without some sweetener.
Are many people allergic to mushrooms?
Thankfully, not that many.
Yeah, I've never heard of it personally.
No, it is something, you just have to kind of be cautious of. But luckily, it's not that common. But, it's not as up there with, peanuts and things like that. But it is still, there are some people who, unfortunately.
I wonder what causes an allergy to mushrooms. It's an interesting thing from my perspective to look at what was the root cause there.
Yeah, indeed.
Let's move on to reishi.
Okay, so reishi, so this is one that isn't a culinary mushroom. So if you ever actually see a real reishi, it's actually like a kind of piece of glossy wood, and it's really solid. And that is because it has a lot of chitin, which is actually an insoluble fiber that is a bit like cellulose in plants. It's the thing that gives the mushroom structure. And that actually, once ground down really fine, is also a prebiotic. So reishi does have some prebiotic effect, but the main things that reishi is known for is, if you do ever have it as a powder, you'll know how bitter it is, well, if it's a good quality reishi, and that is because there's really high level of triterpenes, and these are plant compounds that give it its dark color and this very bitter taste, and they are really highly antioxidant. So reishi is probably one of the most potent antioxidants that you can consume, much higher than things like blueberries or acai. Really potent, and it's also amazingly anti-inflammatory. So those are probably 2 of the key things that people think of for reishi. And of course, it's an immunomodulator, and it's also a wonderful adaptogen. And actually, reishi has more than 400 active compounds. And if people don't know where to start with mushrooms, or they have lots of different things going on that they want to address, reishi is normally the one that we would say, look, this is the one that's likely going to give you some benefit across the board, because it's, it has so many different therapeutic actions. So it can be everything from healthy people wanting to promote healthy aging, reducing oxidative stress, inflammation, skin irritation, gut irritation, all the way through to it's one of the main mushrooms that's got a lot of research for oncology use, for autoimmune conditions, for all the, the other end of the spectrum of health, and everything in between, really.
Yeah, I take reishi daily.
Me too.
Being someone that's had an autoimmune disease and want to keep it dormant forever. So reishi's my go-to. I also take cordyceps. Can you tell us about cordyceps?
Yeah, that's the other one that I also take daily. So cordyceps is amazing. So it's actually what they call an entomopathogenic fungus. And what that means is that in order to sprout a fruiting body, it actually needs an insect or a larvae of an insect host. And so you'll find that all of the cordyceps products on the market in Europe and in America are just the mycelium. And that's because, people want to create vegan mushroom products and not have to, sacrifice a load of insects. And that is, so if traditionally they would have been wildcrafted, and basically, they grow in places like the high Himalayas, and they grow like a grass. And so these worms, they grow in the grass, and the mushrooms put their spores in there, and they kind of live, symbiotically for a while. And then when it's the right season, they sprout a fruiting body, and unfortunately the larva dies. And then they're like these long, weird, skinny little pointy things that don't look anything like you would think as a mushroom. But what happened is when they were growing in the grass, the yaks in the Himalayas started eating them, and they started getting all virile and energetic. And so the herders were like, what is it that they're having? And so then they started collecting the cordyceps and putting it in their tea and their stew.
Oh, I love all the history of this.
I know, it's so cool, isn't it? So
I love it.
And so it's kind of known as the mushroom of vitality. And, so it's, and in terms of Chinese medicine, it's a kidney tonic. And so it's really good for strengthening your resources. It's very good for depletion, fatigue, chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue. But then it's also great at the other end of the spectrum. It's something that is used by athletes if they want to enhance their performance, because it actually contains some compounds that are very similar to adenosine. Well, actually, it has preformed adenosine, and then cordycepin is very, it's like an analog. It's very similar in chemical structure to adenosine, and that's one of the building blocks of ATP, which is our main energy molecule. So what it means is it's actually helping your body to create more energy in your little, energy factories and mitochondria in your cells. So it can boost energy. So if you're already healthy and fit, and you take cordyceps, it actually gives you stamina, it gives you a boost. And it also has a tropism for the lungs, which means it supports, the lung tissue. And that's both for, healing, but also improving oxygenation, oxygen absorption. It's also anti-inflammatory. And so it's something that's going to improve stamina and performance and improve oxygenation and cellular energy throughout the body. So of course, that means it's great for anti-aging. It's great for any kind of degenerative disease, any kind of fitness, fertility. It also supports with building lean muscle mass. So it's another reason why it's useful for people who are exercising or for athletes. And then, anyone who's on any sort of fatigue spectrum. And because it has this kidney and also adrenal tonifying effect, it's great for stress management and for energy management.
Unreal. I mean, it's just crazy, the power in these little things and how, people found them originally. Just fascinating. Let's talk about turkey tail, which I know is kind of known as the cancer mushroom.
Yeah, so turkey tail is kind of known for two things. One is it's got really great antiviral properties, and then there's also been a lot of research into it for oncology. And actually, in Japan in the 80s, one of the key active compounds, PSK, polysaccharide K, was actually patented as Crestin, and it was used as a primary oncology, like chemotherapy treatment. And so it was actually used because it has this impact on reducing cells basically going along the pathway to become cancerous. It can interrupt that. And actually probably this link with the fact that it's so antiviral is really important because, now research is showing that actually certain viruses are risk factors and predisposing factors for certain types of cancers. And so Coriolis, sorry, that's its scientific name is Coriolis or Trametes, but turkey tail it actually helps clear the viral load. So it's actually great, like if someone has got history of viruses and family history of, say, particularly looking at the breast cancers, the female cancers, then using Coriolis preventatively can be really helpful for reducing the viral load in the body and then potentially reducing someone's risk factor. And then there is research, of course, of it being used as part of primary oncology care, and now Hifas is looking at integrative oncology care, so you're being used as part of a plan if someone is looking at helping the body again to have that adaptogenic effect, getting back to working normally. So it's really supporting the body in self-regulating.
Yeah, amazing. What other mushrooms can we talk about?
Okay, so we've talked about lion's mane, cordyceps, reishi, turkey tail. So maybe something like shiitake, I think, is a really interesting one as well. And this is great because it's a kind of thing that now is becoming really available as a culinary mushroom. So I do, encourage people to eat more of that, and that's great. But if people are looking for its therapeutic actions, then, it's useful to take in a supplement form, so you're getting that regularity. And it's one of the main mushrooms for cardiovascular health, which of course is a massive concern in the UK. Because it is not just supporting things like circulation and blood flow and heart health, it actually has naturally occurring statins. And so it helps with regulating cholesterol. It's also highly anti-inflammatory. And also if you're eating it, it's got good amounts of prebiotic fiber as well. So it's helping the body to clear, cholesterol, regulate the bowels. It's having this anti-inflammatory effect. It, of course, if it's working with the fats in the blood supply, then of course that's helping with circulation. So really, really useful mushroom to consider for metabolic balance, for cardiovascular health. And then the other thing that it does as well is it's a really good antimicrobial. So interestingly, it's actually something that we use in anti-candida or healing from candida protocols, because it will compete with the candida albicans, and so it'll have an antifungal effect. So again, when I first started getting into natural health, there wasn't that kind of clear understanding of like fungi actually being supportive of getting rid of something like a fungal disease. So really useful for candida or prevention or regulation.
So let's talk a bit about Hifas da Terra. Sorry, I'm still recovering from the throat thing that everyone had. How did Hifas da Terra come about?
So
because I know it's been around for quite a while, and people are kind of only now starting to get this kind of mass understanding of mycotherapy, and yet they've been around for 24 years?
Yeah, just coming up to, exactly. So in the late 90s is when they'd actually started as a company. But basically it's a family business, and the founder, Catalina, she is a biologist, and her father was in agroforestry. And so she grew up around mushrooms, knowing about mushrooms. And actually the family estate around when Catalina was born, her father planted a whole load of mycorrhizal trees, and that's where Hifas started, and where the main office is and the main production and some of the growing sheds all happen on this family estate with these mycorrhizal trees that are as old as the founder, which I just think is fabulous. And when she was studying biology, she had to do a final project, and she decided to do a project on mushrooms for human health, and she kind of presented it as basically as a business model for if you were going to make supplements and you could do this in this natural organic way. And she won an award for this project. And then it was suggested to her, well, you've done all the prep, why don't you actually start this as a business? So then she actually went into creating a supplement company, but it really came from that research science background, as opposed to from wanting to make supplements and finding some mushrooms. It was studying loads of mushrooms, understanding how amazing they are and how you could apply that to health, and then making products based on that.
Here's the thing about stress and anxiety. Our bodies have not evolved to manage the level of stress we're faced with today, which means that we are constantly in fight or flight mode. And you'll feel this through anxiety and overwhelm, and also through your chronic health problems. Modern life breeds stress, which breeds dis-ease. But if we want to be well, we have to lessen that stress ourselves. Now, I've personally been reducing my stress and overwhelm for 9 months now using the SENSATE. It's a small palm-sized device that sends infrasonic waves through the chest in order to activate the vagus nerve and calm the autonomic nervous system, which is the body's command center. You use it while playing the specially composed hemispheric audio within the app, and the majority of people report feeling calmer after only a short session. Everyone I lend it to ends up buying one because of how much calmer they instantly feel. Now, I'm particularly recommending the SENSATE to anyone who suffers from anxiety and wants help calming the nervous system, those who want to deepen their meditation practice, and people who are looking for ways to be calmer and more grounded. You can get £30 off the SENSATE by visiting getsensate.com and using code Lauren30. That's GETSENSATE.com, Lauren30. Thank you so much to SENSATE for partnering with Reconditioned. Now back to the episode. I really do love all the kind of values of the company. And I'd love you to talk us through because not all mushroom companies are created equal. And I know that a lot of the companies are using, lesser quality mushrooms, non-organic mushrooms. Another thing, obviously, that Hifas da Terra using the fruiting body of the mushroom, and other companies are using the root. So I'd love for you to kind of talk us through all of that. What is it about Hifas da Terra mushroom products that are superior? Because they are superior and they are working. Because I've used, mushroom products in the past that have done nothing. And I for anyone who listens to this regularly, that, you guys are very kindly sponsoring this season. We partnered up because I love the products. And one of the things I say on the ad is that we, so many of these companies, I was asked so many times over the years, can you recommend medicinal mushrooms? And I always said no. And people ask me for recommendations for all sorts of things. Everything regarding health. And I usually have recommendations for most things. And I never had a recommendation for a mushroom company or mycotherapy company because I never personally used any that worked. And this was like years, and then so it's this really is much more than kind of a sponsorship partnership, because I'm so benefiting, my whole family is benefiting so much from these products, and everyone that I'm recommending them to, we're seeing huge changes. And I'll talk about that, like kind of what I've seen in my kids and my husband and all of that stuff in a minute. But if you could just talk us through kind of the principles of the company.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful to hear that, you had such a marked different experience with taking Hifas mushrooms. Certainly that is, Hifas really wants to make products that are going to be not just safe and organic and ethical and good quality, but actually those that are really, going to have a benefit. And key aspects of that. So we've mentioned organic, and with mushrooms, this is really essential, or at a minimum that the company is actually checking them for any contaminants, because mushrooms they can be used to clean up nuclear waste. They can be used to clean soil that has, runoff, that has, a load of toxic chemicals in there, because they are natural sponges, and they're feeding on dead wood, they're feeding on soil, depending on the mushroom. So whatever is in that environment, they will absorb. So with mushrooms, it's one of the, key things.
We need to be really careful.
And that's for eating mushrooms as well. It's like I won't eat non-organic mushrooms.
Same.
buy organic, because that's or if that they've been grown in a place on a safe substrate and they're not certified, okay, but yeah, you want to know where they're coming from. And that's you should ask, it should be on the packaging, or it should be a conversation with any company of like, are they testing for heavy metals, are they testing for pesticides, for toxins, because those could all be in there. So organic or minimum, tested for toxins is really essential. And that's like keeping the nasties out. But then, of course, what's really important is you also want those key active compounds. So mushrooms, there are different types that will grow on different substrates, but the main medicinal ones are traditionally wood grown, and then there are a few that are grown on the soil. And what that means is, if you think about it, wood doesn't have very much nutrients in there. It's mostly fiber. And what that means is that mushroom has to work really hard to actually extract the nutrients. And so, it then it takes a while to grow, and it also then means that this mushroom is having to like really work hard, and so it becomes much more nutritionally active. And the key compound that would demonstrate this, if you were looking at the profile, would be the beta glucans. So they are formed when it's been grown, particularly on a wood substrate. And then there's something called alpha glucans, which are basically starch, which are going to be much lower because wood doesn't have, very high sugars. Whereas now a lot of companies will grow on grain. And what that means is that, like with people, if you put them on a really like high carbohydrate diet, they will get big very fast, but they're not necessarily going to have good body composition. And the same applies to a mushroom. So if they get something that's really high in starch, they will plump up and they'll be these big fat mushrooms. But if you actually look on a chemical level, they're not going to have very much beta glucan, which is the really key active therapeutic compound. They're going to have a lot of alpha glucan. And so, you can have a mushroom that's organic and, it's tested for everything. But if it's been grown on grain, you're actually not going to get a high level of these key active compounds. And then both the beta and the alpha glucans are in a group of sugars called polysaccharides. So you'll see a lot of companies will just say 30% polysaccharides. And so people think, oh, that's a good amount of active compounds, because the only polysaccharide, if they've heard of one, would be beta glucan. But actually, if that's been grown on a grain, or actually even if it hasn't been grown on a grain and you don't know what it's been grown on, you have no idea of those polysaccharides. What are these key active compounds of beta glucans, and what are other, like we talked about reishi, all this chitin, that's also a polysaccharide. And so it could all just be fiber, which is, good for your microbiome. But if you're wanting these active compounds like these triterpenes, these beta glucans, which are the ones that modulate your immune system, have the potential anti-cancer benefits, are anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, etc., you need these active compounds. So what it's grown on is really essential. The fact that if the company will state what active compounds are in there and how much you're getting, not just a general polysaccharide. So what is the level of beta glucans? What is the level of terpenoid compounds? What are the other, a lot of mushrooms will have certain minerals or, these statins or things like that. You want to know, does the mushroom product actually have those active compounds? So that standardization and actually listing on the packaging. And that's something that, Hifas is doing when they produce, is they're checking these levels and they're looking for the fingerprint of the active compounds and making sure that, the mushrooms actually have the key active compounds. And actually to control that, Hifas actually has a whole mushroom strain library and uses proprietary strains, which means that they can pick and choose, which mushroom strain has the best fingerprint of these active compounds. And then they will grow those mushrooms, and then they will check at the end, are those active compounds present? Are they in levels, that we're happy with? And then, of course, in an extract, you're then making sure that those active compounds are at a higher and guaranteed level. So that's really important. And you also mentioned fruiting body. So we talked about a mushroom as being like the whole fungi, as including this mycelium, this root network. Now, of course, there are active compounds in there that are useful. But like with a tree, it's only once a year that the fruit comes out, and that has all of the nutrients because it's going to grow, a whole new tree. And so with mushrooms, it's not quite the same growing cycle, but when the fruiting body body comes, of course, that takes longer and it has more of these active compounds there. So if you can, we would say choose products that are fruiting body, because you're getting something that has been more expensive to produce and has, often a higher concentration of these active compounds. The only time that Hifas uses a mycelium product, we talked about cordyceps, because this is, a mushroom that needs an insect in order to actually sprout a fruiting body. Hifas just uses mycelium, but it's really important if you have a mycelium product that you make sure it's not grown in grain, because we talked about these tiny little filaments, these mycelial roots. So they can be as fine as a human hair. And of course, if you think about a mushroom, it has this they have some structure, but they break very easily. So if you've got all these tiny little filaments growing through a grain medium, when you're trying to make a product out of those filaments, of course, you can't get rid of all of the grain. And so there's it's legally allowable that once mushroom spores have been put into a grain, then that whole biomass is considered mushroom biomass, full spectrum biomass. And so, they'll shake off as much of the grain as they can, but then all of the grain that is still included with those mushroom fibers is ground up. And that is then your 100% mushroom powder. So actually part of the polysaccharide count could be from that grain. So really, if you're using a mycelium, it needs to be not grown on grain. And so Hifas have this cool bioreactor that they've kind of, patented that will grow in an algae base. So again, it means, there's no substrate left and it's just the pure mycelium. And then they can go through, the extraction process and make sure that the active compounds are there. So yeah, those are, and checks along the way, either internally and ideally with some third-party checks, so that, someone is actually saying, yes, we certify this is organic. Yes, we certify that this is without chemicals, or that this, this has the active compounds that are listed on the packet are actually in there. And so Hifas has got GMP certification, and that is good manufacturing practices, which normally is restricted to pharmaceutical products. But Hifas decided they wanted to make 100% natural organic product, but standardize it and have the quality of a pharmaceutical. And so, it kind of is what we call a nutraceutical. So it's really in that, sort of straddling the best of both of those fields.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I kind of hope everyone took note, or either got a bit scientific, but still just to understand the level of dedication to keeping the medicine of the plant there and doing what it's meant to do. I'm really interested for you to tell us a bit about the Onco range and how that came about. And because very few products, natural health products, are able to actually market themselves as for oncology or for COVID or things like that. And yet you've been able to do both. So I'd love you to take us through the Onco range and through mycovir.
Yeah. So basically, we talked a little bit about Coriolis turkey tail being used for oncology care in Asia, and for a long time, people have been using medicinal mushrooms, but mushrooms are what we call dose dependent. So like I said before, if you're healthy, you can take a lower dose and it's going to give you a boost. At the other end of the spectrum, the less well you are, the higher concentration you need of these mushroom active compounds in order to get a benefit. So when people were using mushrooms for oncology support, they were having to take 10, 15 capsules a day, maybe twice or three times a day, in order to be getting the levels of the active compounds to actually be having these benefits. Key benefits really are supporting the immune system, managing whatever primary treatment someone is taking, and reducing the side effects of that. And there is definitely some data on them actually having different actions along the cancer pathway to be helping bring the body back to homeostasis. But what Hifas decided to do is, rather than trying to create, an alternative product, or to be making health claims about what mushrooms can do, they created products that were designed or are designed to be used integratively and to really be supporting the immune system and the individual health and reducing side effects even if, or especially if they are taking a primary treatment. And so that then means that they can be maintaining their health so that they can complete the course of their treatment whilst feeling better, or complete it at all, because I know that's a major factor, people dropping out of treatment because they get such bad side effects, and that is reduced with high level mushroom use. And to make things easier and to make compliance, so make it more likely that people would stick with taking their products, they realized a liquid format was going to be much more palatable, easy, than having to take hundreds of capsules. And then it also becomes more cost effective as well. So the Onco range is designed it's a mushroom, very concentrated extract, which is then in a liquid form. So people can take, a 10 ml vial once or twice a day without it being handfuls and handfuls of capsules. And there's also research that shows that vitamin C actually helps with the absorption of the mushroom active compound. So there's some natural vitamin C included in this liquid, which partly helps with the taste, but also really helps and the preservation, because of course vitamin C is an antioxidant, but it actually helps with the absorption of particularly the beta glucans, and of course supports immunity. And Hifas also found, and other research demonstrates, that even though mushrooms in general have this immune modulating effect, there are certain mushrooms that will have tropisms, attractions for and benefits for specific organs and systems or tissues in the body. And so Hifas have actually created a line with 5 different products with different synergistic combinations of mushrooms, so that they are targeted at slightly different types of cancer. So they have the key 3 mushrooms in there. That is the kind of foundation. And then in some cases 1, in some cases 2 or 3 other mushrooms that are going to be specific for that particular part of the body. So you're going to get this really nice holistic effect. And and they're designed to be taken alongside medications, as part of an integrative approach, rather than as a standalone. But of course, that's the patient's choice. And
if someone wanted, because I know obviously you're not making any claims about what it can do on its own, and you can't. But if someone had chosen on their own that they didn't want to go down the conventional route, many people listening to this podcast have gone down a complete natural approach for healing cancer. Would this product, would the Onco range be able to support with that?
So the Onco range is going to support the immune system and support that bringing the body back into a self-healing state. So certainly if someone wants to use it in this way, then that's something that they could potentially get benefit from. It is designed as an integrative product, but people are welcome to use it standalone. And it is also something that can be used preventatively, or people who want to really boost their health. There are also certain practitioners who will use the Onco range for autoimmune conditions. So they can be used for other types of degenerative conditions, or for really, sort of boosting health. And, the thing with mushrooms is basically they are supporting the body in self-regulating. And of course, at the, extreme end, you need much higher doses. And this is something that, the Onco Care range is providing.
Yeah. And then am I right in saying that kind of once you're in that more healed state, mycotherapy would be the one to use to maintain that healed state?
It's one of the ones that has the most research, and because I think partly because of that, reducing the viral load, but it is one that, yes, Hifas recommends that for remission, for ongoing support, generally mycotherapy is the best. And this is a concentrated extract of turkey tail. This is one that you would take for the first 6 months after, if you had completed primary treatment or have reached remission. The first 6 months, again, take it at a higher dose, so 2 capsules 3 times a day, and then taper it down. And people can take a 2 capsule a day dose indefinitely as a preventative. The other one that's recommended is something called Myco 5, which is a combination of 5 key mushrooms. So we've talked about reishi and shiitake, but also agaricus blazei, morel, maitake, which is another one that's actually included in all of the Onco Care line, and chaga. So this is we
haven't touched on chaga yet.
No, because it's quite a new one to the Hifas mushrooms, and it's actually only used in a couple of combination products, and one of the kids products and this Myco 5 for the kind of like, synergy effect rather than as a standalone. But again, this is from the more sort of Siberian Eastern medicine traditions. But again, another mushroom that people who are into natural medicine may have encountered as a tea as being, and it's very dark and bitter. And that's actually partly because of the betulinic acid from the birch trees that it grows on. But that again is something that, again, traditional usage in oncology and gastrointestinal health, anti-aging, immunomodulation. So it's in there as part of that big 5, either for kids or adults, for immune modulation. And so that's another one that people could think about for ongoing support. Yeah.
And to go back to the onco range, there's quite a few, aren't there? So there's onco men, women. How does it work exactly? If someone's listening and they're going through cancer treatment or about to start, how would they get started?
So there are 5 products, and they're designed for particular groups. So Myco Men, as you mentioned, which is geared towards supporting alongside with prostate cancer. Myco Mama is for all of the female cancers, and Mama is Spanish for breast, but it can actually also be used for other gynecological cancer support. And this, one of the great things about a mushroom line is that it's not like a chemotherapy where you have to get specifically the right drug and understand, it's like, well, is there this genetic factor, or is this happening, or this, and then you choose something different. Myco Mama can be used across the board, as long as a person isn't allergic to mushrooms. And it's actually because it's helping the body to self-regulate, and it's mushrooms that are going to be working on the gut health, on these, the hormonal management, as well as the inflammation, the cellular regeneration, etc. So it can be used across the board.
And I wonder, sorry to interrupt, but it's just come to me now to ask, and it might be completely wrong, but based on that, would it be good for women who are experiencing infertility, or perhaps women who are going through fertility treatment?
Well, I mean, potentially, but because, mushrooms are dose dependent, people can actually get benefits for fertility just with using the extract range, and using, sort of 2 to 4 capsules of concentrated extract a day can often be enough to actually, and that's for men and women. Something like cordyceps, maitake, reishi are probably the key ones that we'd think of, because maitake is very blood sugar regulating. It's really useful if there's something like PCOS, or hormonal issues or weight issues that are affecting the fertility, and reishi just for everything, but it's also an amazing hormone balancer. And then cordyceps, for fertility, cellular oxygenation and cellular energy, which of course is important for men as well as for women. But we actually, practitioners who use our mushrooms have found that actually just at that level of concentration, that's enough. So I think, if you've got the money and you want something that's going to give you a really fast boost, maybe you would do a month of that, and it's not going to hurt. But actually people don't need that level of concentration or investment in order to actually get a benefit.
Okay, so what else is in the onco range?
Okay, so we've said the Myco Men, Myco Mama. Then there's one called Myco Digest, which of course has lion's mane in it, and that is for any of the digestive range of cancers. Then there is Myco Pneu, which is as in like pneumatic, so pneumo of the lungs. So that's for lung cancer. And then the final one is Myco Onco, and this is the general one. So for anything not covered by, male cancers, female cancers, lung, digestive, you would use Myco Onco. And and that's kind of across the board. So there's something for any need really for supporting.
And so talk us through mycovir, because I know that went through a really interesting clinical trial during COVID.
So mycovir is a combination of reishi and cordyceps, and this is something that in synergy they have a really good effect both for immunomodulation and for having an antiviral effect, basically. And this is something that you can just use by itself, but it also pairs well with the mycochlorium, which, as we know, is the other really antiviral mushroom. And this is something that is having that dual effect of both supporting the body to getting back to health, but also having a direct antiviral effect. There's various different mechanisms that happen, particularly from the cordyceps, but also the reishi, which is actually interrupting the viral replication. And so it's actually slowing down that the progression of a virus, and then also, of course, the immunomodulation means that then the immune system is getting stronger, so it can fight against the viral invasion.
And what about the trial in the care home?
Yeah, so this was interesting, and it was actually also using another mushroom called which is, well, we have as a product mycosol, which is the sun mushroom, or Agaricus blazei. And this was in a care home in Spain, and it was in residents of the care home who were diagnosed with COVID, either by PCR or blood test, and then they were given a course of these mushrooms. And they compared the statistics of, because they didn't have a control group, because they were just using, they wanted everyone who wanted to be involved was involved and given the actual active mushrooms, but they compared against the national statistics, and they found that, in this group of people who were treated, that the national mortality rate for this age group, and also, people who often had, pre-existing diseases, was about 24%. And in the this group who were treated, it was actually down to 1%. So huge difference from the national statistic.
Massive.
None of the group needed to go to intensive care or had any follow-up complaints, so all of them got through it and recovered. So amazing difference compared to the national statistics at that time. Group, but very interesting.
And I've been recommending that product for there's been a lot of viruses and things going around at the moment, so I've really been recommending mycovir a lot. The last thing I want to talk about is the children's products, because for me that's been a massive thing. I've never had or found medicinal mushrooms for kids before, and especially ones that are quite palatable as well. So it's been a big deal, and I've been giving. So my son has some sensory issues, and my daughter has had eczema recently, and they've been taking Dr. GB. I've been giving them the immune one during the change of seasons, and also now they're having it every day at the moment because immunity is so low and everyone just seems sick around us. So my son had a bad chest, and then he thankfully that didn't go into any, and same with me. I was taking reishi and cordyceps, and it kind of, we had these bad chests but we didn't get sick, so that was great, thank God. And I've noticed a big difference in my son, in his mood and in his all the stuff. I won't go into it all, but all the stuff that kind of we associate with him with the sensory challenges that he has. With my daughter, she's a bit more robust than him. She was presenting with some eczema, which is still kind of there and it's clearing up, and we're doing the mushrooms alongside homeopathy as well and some red light treatment. But the big difference I've noticed in her since taking Dr. GB is she was complaining of tummy aches a lot. And to the point that I thought, do I need to worry about this? What is happening here? And I actually sent off a stool sample because she was complaining about it so much. I was like, what's going on? And within a few weeks of taking Dr. GB, they've been on it for 3-4 months now. She hasn't complained of a tummy ache. Her stools have gone back to normal in terms of how they look, how often she's going. So that's been a massive thing. And also, based on my son having this sensory aversion to food, it's really hard to get anything into him. And they're like, oh, we have mushroom medicine now. They love it. Because like you said, it's got agave in it, so it is sweet. Non-refined sugar, so I'm totally okay with it. What's actually in Dr. GB?
Yeah, so Dr. GB is a combination of lion's mane and reishi. And then Hifas, another thing that Hifas does, not just researching the mushrooms themselves, but also the technology, the extraction, making the products more absorbable. And so now the kids product uses this micro emulsion tech, which means that the mushrooms are actually going to be absorbed in this liquid form much more efficiently. So people are actually getting a higher level of the mushroom active compounds than if they were just taking it in a powder form, say, like you would get as a powder or a capsule. And there's also a little bit of FOS in there, which is a type of plant fiber that's good for the microbiota, and then the agave that you said, and a bit of a natural strawberry flavor to make it a little bit more palatable, and of course vitamin C to enhance the absorption and uptake. And I think there's a little bit of plant vitamin A and E in there too, in the GB. And so basically, we talked about reishi being very good for the nervous system and being very anti-inflammatory. And then lion's mane, really, we think of it as, GB is gut and brain, and lion's mane really is the gut and brain mushroom. And the combination of the two is great either for kids that have gut issues, or kids that have developmental or mood or concentration issues, stress, sleep, food allergies, sensitivities, this whole spectrum, anything that's to do with the gut and the emotions and the brain and the development and the level of inflammation that could be affecting either of these two. So it's great to hear your daughter's experience, because that very much is, it's going to be having this anti-inflammatory and healing effect on the gut, but also both the reishi and the lion's mane are going to be supporting her with her mood and any anxiety, and with sleeping better, and with having better concentration, feeling calmer. So it's a really great combination for kids in this whole spectrum of complaints.
And it's something I talk about a lot, kind of the gut-brain connection, how important it is to strengthen the gut in order to strengthen the brain, and vice versa. We know that 90% of serotonin is in the gut, so how do we expect mood to be good if the gut is completely out of whack? And the challenge that I've always had, and as someone who's trained in nutrition and has a deep understanding of this, still I can't, here I was blessed with my son who doesn't eat very well. It's been such a challenge. So knowing that this has had an impact and continues to have an impact is really kind of, I'm very grateful for the product, because I haven't found a product. There's one other product that I also still give them, which is Ion Gut, which I, really think is a great Zach Bush's product. But other than that, I've never really found something that I really feel makes a huge difference to the gut and the brain, which is basically everything for them that needs to be balanced and healthy. So very grateful for that. Is there anything we've missed that we haven't spoken about, or that I haven't asked you about, that you think people need to know?
Well, you just say a little bit about the other kids product, which you mentioned. So that one is like the adult Myco 5, and it's Dr. Immune 5, and that is 5 mushrooms that are for immunity. But again, there's a couple of mushrooms in there for gut health. So there's some oyster in there, and so again, both of these products based on reishi, and then with companion mushrooms. So this has got 5 mushrooms that are going to be supporting immune health, and so this one is geared towards, like you were saying, now all these viruses going around. This is a really great one that can be given to kids on a regular basis, to be either helping them defend against getting sick, or if they do get sick, to help their bodies to recover more quickly. So it doesn't mean they're never going to get sick, but it means they'll be more resilient and they will recover more quickly. So that's really another great option to think about for parents. And otherwise, I'm just thinking, have we? I guess with Hifas, they really, I think some people can be finding it a little bit complicated because there's so many products. But really, as we've talked about, because there are different needs dependent on your state of health, Hifas has actually got products that have a different range of concentrations. And what that means is, if someone's taking capsules, they can take 2 capsules a day if they're healthy, all the way through to if they have, even with an autoimmune disease, there are some extract products that just 2 capsules a day are actually going to make a noticeable difference. But either you're taking the whole powder range, something like the biointestine, which is just whole mushrooms in a capsule, or you're taking the mycotherapy, which is a concentrated extract. And so it means that you're getting so much more concentration of those active compounds, but you're not having to, take 10 capsules. You're just taking 2 capsules. You just take the concentrated extract. So, it really is just even to make it more simple and user-friendly for people. And that's why there's a range. And then we have the Cordyceps Sport in the middle, which is a mixture of a little bit of concentrated extract and then whole cordyceps powder. And that's for those people that just want to enhance their sporting performance, but are generally healthy. So I'd say, and then of course the powders that we talked about that are, kind of can be used for adults or children. Oh yeah, the one thing as well to think about is with pregnancy and breastfeeding. So, mushrooms are a functional food, but using them as concentrated extracts, isn't something that people have ever done safety trials on. So, we can't recommend that people take extracts or concentrates during pregnancy, but the powder, the hericium, which is the lion's mane powder, the reishi antiox powder, these are things that can be taken. The biointestine, which again is just a mushroom powder product, these are things that can be safely taken during pregnancy to be boosting, the immunity or dealing with mood, sleep, gut issues. But we can't recommend the concentrated extract. So that's just a caution for people to be aware of. And although the only contraindication really is if you have a mushroom allergy, there are a few things that people just need to consider when thinking about mushrooms, because they are therapeutically active. If you're taking concentrated extracts and say, you're taking a blood sugar lowering medication, and then you choose a blood sugar lowering mushroom, the mushroom is adaptogenic and will modulate. The medication isn't. So, people really need to be conscious of if they have, it's really blood sugar and blood thinning medication. If you're then going to take something like reishi or maitake, which are mushrooms that have the similar effect, you really need to tell your doctor, monitor your medication, because it might mean that, you need to change the dosage because the mushroom helps your body work more efficiently, which can be a great benefit. But, of course, for safety's sake, you really want to monitor and adapt things as needed. So that's the kind of the main caution. And of course, if someone isn't sure, then Hifas has a free health helpline, which is either for practitioners or individuals, just health@hifasdaterra.com. So you can write in your question, say which mushroom would be good for me, or which product, which concentration, send a little health history, and there'll be someone qualified who can give some free advice about how best to navigate the product.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, so I'm really glad you did, because I get a bunch of DMs going, which one should I take for this? I'm not qualified to tell you that, although I have been through the Hifas training, but I would rather people contact the helpline, because that you're going to get much better guidance on that. And for anyone listening who wants to buy any Hifas da Terra products, you can get 15% off using the code Lauren15. So that is great because it makes it more affordable. And we just did a massive bulk buy on Black Friday, so that was great. Hania, thank you so much. I have learned so much more as well, and I'm sure everyone listening has just taken away so much information. I'm grateful to you for giving us this information, and I'm so grateful, genuinely grateful to Hifas da Terra. Please feedback my thanks to the people at the top, because this is a product that's genuinely having an impact on my life and my children's lives, and I'm very grateful. So thank you.
Thank you. And it's so wonderful to hear all your feedback and how helpful it's been for you. It really makes the work that Hifas do feel worthwhile, because really demonstrating.
If you haven't yet heard, I have just released a free journaling course. If you've always wanted to try journaling but just don't know where to start, or you've been hearing how powerful journaling can be but you just don't understand why, or you want to create a daily practice that enhances your life but you just need a little support in doing that without it costing you anything, this course will do all that for you. It is packed with content that will show you just why journaling is important, how to do it, where to start, and how to make it work for you. It is completely free, and that is as a way for me to pay it forward, because journaling really is one of the most integral parts of my growth practice, and I want to give that to you. All you have to do is click on the link in the show notes to get the course sent directly to your inbox. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Reconditioned. I am honestly so grateful to each and every person that tunes in. Thank you also for taking responsibility for your own well-being. You should know that just by choosing to listen to podcasts like this that further your well-being, you're moving more deeply into abundance consciousness. Now, don't forget, I have a bunch of free resources over at laurenvakneen.co.uk, as well as every recommendation you could ever need in regards to your well-being on the LV Recommends page, all categorized for your ease. Thank you also to our sponsors. These episodes would not be possible without them, so make sure to check them out and get some pretty awesome discounts on the show notes. And of course, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so that you can get updated each time a new one is released. Thank you. I appreciate you. Reconditioned is proud to be working with Women for Women International, a charity that supports women survivors of war in 8 war-torn countries around the world. You can help a woman survivor of war transform her life today by visiting womenforwomen.org.uk/donate.